The key writers on semiotics were the structuralist linguists Ferdinand de Saussure and Charles Sanders Peirce, which is pronounced Peirce even though it's spelled more like Pierce. Saussure's basic proposition was that communication creates meaning rather than simply expressing it. It was a very radical idea at the time, and if you've studied philosophy, you'll remember René Descartes' famous phrase, "I think, therefore I am," which meant that cognition could be understood through introspection from a kind of first-person perspective. Structuralists turned things around by saying, let's look at the social manifestations of thought because that's observable and will give us a better sense of how meaning works in the real world. So rather than making that Cartesian first-person assumption that subjective mental processes are the foundation of all thought, they took a third-person perspective and looked at culture as the key to understanding. What this means is that they looked for the structural patterns of meaning in society rather than thinking about it as something that comes from the mind. And this debate is still very current because contemporary methods of studying the brain have made cognition more accessible, so it's possible to look at the aspects of understanding and communication that may be cognitively hardwired rather than socially constructed. But even if many aspects of how we understand and communicate are the product of evolution and the brain, culture still plays a significant role in language, which is pretty clear to anyone who's ever learned a foreign language and discovered that each language has different priorities and expressive options. Similarly, other sign systems vary across cultures, and structuralism and semiotics look for the rules that govern culture and all kinds of communication, from storytelling to fashion. We aren't necessarily conscious of these rules, but we intuitively follow them because they are familiar. Both Peirce and Saussure created categories for different kinds of signs. But for our purposes, you might just use a general definition from Umberto Eco, who described a sign as, quote, everything that, on the grounds of a previously established social convention, can be taken as something standing for something else. A sign can be a word, but it can also be an image, a symbol, even a sound. A sign has meaning because it's part of a system of meaning, like a language or a set of cultural beliefs or symbols. So if you see a red, yellow, or green light at a street corner, you know what that means because those signs are part of a system of traffic management in our culture. So both structuralism and semiotics see meaning as relational and differential, rather than something that's inherently linked to an object or referent, such as the color red, yellow, or green. The word bird has no intrinsic connection to the animal. It could also be called a chair. But we know that what bird means because the word has been arbitrarily assigned to that animal in our language, and it means something that is different from a dog or a bat. This might seem obvious where language is concerned, but it's important when you start to think about signs that we see as more natural.